British royals have posed for a new formal photograph. There, she's the only splash of color in this picture. But take a close look at her tiara.
There is a moment, and those who were in that ballroom will never fully forget it, when a room full of the most powerful, most composed, most carefully trained people on the planet collectively held its breath. The doors opened, Catherine walked in, and on her head, resting with the kind of quiet authority that cannot be manufactured, was the Rose of Windsor tiara. And somewhere across that gilded room, Camilla's face changed. Not dramatically, not in the way that tabloids would have loved to capture, but in the way that only happens when someone has done everything within their power to prevent a specific outcome, and watches it arrive anyway. The cameras caught it. The people who knew what to look for caught it. And by the end of that evening, nothing inside Buckingham Palace would be quite the same again. This is that story. All of it. The planning, the theft, the replica, the investigation, the confrontation, and the moment an entire monarchy held its breath inside four walls while the world outside watched a perfectly choreographed performance and had absolutely no idea. The weight of a crown nobody asked to wear. Before we get to the ballroom, before we get to the tiara and the theft and the replica commission that revealed just how far this was willing to go, we need to understand what was actually at stake on this particular night. The British monarchy does not simply attend events. It performs them. Every element of a state occasion, the floral arrangements, the seating geometry, the precise moment each person enters a room, the order in which hands are shaken, the distance between bodies in a photograph. Every single detail is a form of communication, a language spoken entirely in images, a language the palace has been perfecting for centuries. And in this language, jewelry is not decoration. Jewelry is declaration. The Rose of Windsor tiara is not simply a beautiful object. It is one of the most symbolically saturated pieces in the entire royal collection. It is inextricably, visually, emotionally tied to the memory of Queen Elizabeth II, a woman whose death left a gap in the institution so enormous that no single person has yet managed to fill it, and whose legacy remains the most powerful currency in the royal family's ongoing negotiation with public trust. So when we talk about who is going to wear that tiara on the night of a major state gala, with an international head of state in attendance, with press cameras at every entrance, with a global audience watching every broadcast, we are not talking about a fashion choice. We are talking about a verdict. And Camilla knew it. Catherine knew it. Princess Anne knew it. And someone with resources, with access, and with a level of determination that should alarm everyone who cares about what this institution is supposed to represent, decided that verdict needed to be controlled. The request that was never really a request. Except that invitation is entirely the wrong word for what it actually was. Those present describe it less as a request and more as an expectation, a statement delivered with the serene confidence of someone who had already decided the answer and was simply waiting for the room to catch up. Camilla wanted the tiara, and her wanting it was not purely aesthetic. Consider her position for a moment. Here is a woman who spent years at the absolute center of the most divisive romantic story the British public had consumed in decades. A woman whose name became synonymous, for an entire generation, with betrayal and the destruction of a fairy tale. A woman who married into a throne that many believed she had no right to stand near, let alone occupy. She has survived all of it. She has outlasted the critics. She has endured the slow, grinding, often humiliating work of public rehabilitation. And she has arrived at a position of extraordinary institutional power. But arriving at power and being seen to hold power are two entirely different things in an institution built on imagery. And on this particular night, wearing that piece of jewelry would have done something that no speech, no title, no formal declaration could replicate. It would have said, "I am the continuity. I am the legitimate heir to what Elizabeth built. I am not a footnote. I am the chapter." So yes, she wanted it, and she made that wanting known. The request went to Princess Anne. If you follow the royal family with any seriousness, you understand that Anne is one of the most formidably competent people in that institution. She does not traffic in drama. She does not waste time on performances that serve no practical purpose. She has navigated 6 decades of palace life with a clarity of judgment that most of her contemporaries have never come close to matching. Anne's response was delivered with the economy of someone who has absolutely no interest in unnecessary theater. The tiara, she said, was not available. It was with the royal jewelers. Essential maintenance. End of conversation. Camilla accepted this. She nodded. She walked away. And for a brief, foolish moment, those watching may have believed the matter was settled. It was not settled. Not even close. The rumor that changed everything. Go back to the beginning, because to understand why this moment matters, you need to understand what the Cambridge Lovers' Knot Tiara truly represents. Queen Mary commissioned this extraordinary piece in 1913 from the House of Gerard. 19 teardrop pearls, diamond arches, silver and gold, a design inspired by a tiara worn by Princess Augusta, Duchess of Cambridge, a piece more than 2 centuries old. Queen Mary wanted to capture that heritage, and she succeeded beyond anything she could have imagined. Experts today value the Lover's Knot at approximately $2.7 million, but that number tells you almost nothing about its real worth. Queen Elizabeth II inherited it and wore it through the 1950s. Then, for decades, it faded quietly into the royal vault, largely forgotten by the public, until one woman changed everything. Lady Diana Spencer. The year was 1981, a fairy tale wedding, a world watching, and a queen who, as a wedding gift, placed one of the most significant pieces in the royal collection into the hands of a young woman who had no idea how completely she would make it her own. Diana wore the Lover's Knot to state banquets, royal tours across Hong Kong and Saudi Arabia, diplomatic receptions, and parliamentary openings. She wore it so often, so brilliantly, that the tiara stopped belonging to history and started belonging to her. She once admitted it was heavy and gave her headaches, and she wore it anyway. That tells you everything about Diana's relationship with duty, beauty, and the public she loved. When Diana died in 1997, the tiara went back to the vault. For nearly 18 years, no one wore it, as if the palace itself was in mourning, as if placing it on any other head would be an act of betrayal. And then Catherine wore it. The woman who dared to wear it. 18 years after Diana's death, Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, arrived at the annual diplomatic reception at Buckingham Palace wearing the Cambridge Lovers' Knot tiara. The response was electric. The internet didn't just notice, the internet erupted. Comparisons to Diana flooded social media within minutes. Side-by-side photographs, the same tiara, 2 women, 2 eras. The resemblance, in elegance, in presence, in the way both women seemed to carry something bigger than themselves, was undeniable. But here is something important that many people miss about that moment. Catherine wasn't being reckless. She wasn't making a bold, provocative statement. She was, in fact, doing something that required enormous emotional intelligence. She was acknowledging Diana's legacy while simultaneously stepping into her own. She has worn it multiple times since. The 2017 Spanish State Banquet, the 2018 Diplomatic Reception, the 2019 Diplomatic Reception. Each appearance generated headlines. Each appearance invited comparisons. And each time, Catherine wore it with the quiet confidence of a woman who understands exactly what she is carrying. Then came the pandemic. Then came the cancer diagnosis in early 2024.
In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful.
For nearly 2 years, the Lover's Knot sat unworn again, and the world waited. July 2025, Windsor Castle, the French state banquet. Catherine stepped into the room in a stunning crimson Giovanni gown with a cape, and on her head, the Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara. The first time in years. The internet responded with something beyond admiration. It responded with relief, emotion, joy. Brigitte Macron, wife of the French president, personally complimented Catherine's elegance. The fashion press declared it one of the decade's defining royal fashion moments. 2 months later, September 2025, the U.S. State Banquet honoring President Donald Trump. Catherine again, this time in a golden lace gown. The tiara again. President Trump reportedly told her she looked radiant, so healthy, and so beautiful. Prince William sat nearby. Queen Camilla sat nearby. And on Catherine's head, Diana's tiara. Think about that image for a moment. Really think about it. A queen under watchful eyes. Camilla's rise to the throne was not the fairy tale ascent many imagined for a queen. It was a story laced with scars from the past, a crown worn under the shadow of controversy rather than celebration. For decades, she had been branded as the other woman, the figure blamed for the heartbreak of Diana, Princess of Wales. Newspapers ridiculed her, television commentators dissected her every move, and cartoons caricatured her as an interloper who had stolen what was never meant to be hers. That reputation clung to her like smoke, impossible to fully escape, even when the crown finally rested upon her head. Her coronation in 2023 might have looked like a victory, but for Camilla, it was more like an uneasy truce. The blessing of Queen Elizabeth II had paved her way, giving her legitimacy in the eyes of tradition. Yet, legitimacy is not the same as love. Crowds gathered, the ceremonies were grand, and history recorded her as queen consort. But in the quiet glances of the public, there was hesitation. Cheering for her often sounded more like politeness than genuine admiration. And when she stood beside Charles, part of the answer lies in the enduring memory of Diana. Her image was never dimmed by time. To many, Catherine, Princess of Wales, became Diana's echo, graceful, compassionate, and adored. In contrast, Camilla appeared stiffer, colder, her charm unable to spark the same warmth. It was a comparison she could never outrun, a reminder that crowns may be inherited, but affection must be earned. The monarchy survives not on gold or jewels, but on perception. And for Camilla, perception was her greatest enemy. Each smile seemed measured, each wave calculated, as if she herself knew the crown she wore was fragile. But could a queen survive when her subjects never truly claimed her as their own? Stay with us. This is only the beginning. The house that held secrets. For most people, a countryside retreat is simply a place to breathe, to step away from the weight of responsibility. For Queen Camilla, that place was Raymill House, a sprawling estate tucked away in Wiltshire, purchased in the 1990s long before she married Charles. To her, it was more than a home. It was a sanctuary, a refuge where she could shed the stiffness of royal formality. Yet in the eyes of critics, Raymill became something else entirely. Unlike Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, Raymill was private, beyond the gaze of the institution, and that secrecy fueled suspicion. Why did she cling to it so fiercely, even after stepping into the grandeur of royal life? Why choose the countryside over the palaces of history? To many, it felt like she was maintaining a parallel world, one foot inside the monarchy, the other firmly outside it. Over the years, whispers gathered like storm clouds. Stories circulated of private dinners held there, long after her marriage to Charles. Politicians quietly invited, influential guests slipping in unnoticed. To supporters, these were harmless social gatherings, but to detractors, they were red flags. Was this merely a queen seeking comfort in familiarity? Or was Raymill being used for something far more complicated? The symbolism could not be ignored. Palaces represent continuity, tradition, the visibility of the crown. Raymill represented secrecy, distance, and the possibility of shadows hidden from public view. Every time Camilla chose to spend a weekend there instead of at Windsor, her decision whispered a message louder than words. This was where her loyalties felt safest. And then, as years passed, the contrast sharpened into something unavoidable, went viral. Meanwhile, Camilla's preference for Raymill left an air of detachment, a queen seen as retreating from her people. The estate no longer seemed a harmless retreat. To the public, it began to look like a vault for secrets, a place where the monarchy's unseen dramas might unfold. Could one house really carry such weight? Could stone walls and quiet gardens become the stage for whispers that threatened a crown? The answer, as events would prove, was far more unsettling than anyone imagined. Don't blink. You'll want to hear what surfaced next. The question everyone is asking. And here is the question that has been following Camilla since the day she became queen consort. Why has she never worn the lover's knot? She is queen consort. She has access to the entire royal jewelry collection. King Charles III, who now controls that collection as monarch, is her husband. If anyone in the world has the influence to wear whatever tiara she chooses, it should be Camilla. And yet, not once, not a single time, not even a rumor of an attempt. The answer that royal commentators give is clean and simple. Camilla is smart enough to know better. She has her favorites: the Greville tiara, the Delhi Durbar, the Belgian sapphire tiara, and most recently Queen Alexandra's kokoshnik, dazzling with over 400 diamonds. In November 2025, she debuted the Greville Emerald kokoshnik at the diplomatic reception. At the December 2025 Qatari State Banquet, she wore yet another stunning piece from the collection. Camilla is not lacking for options. She is not pining after Diana's tiara. By all accounts, she is entirely content. But here is where the story gets complicated, because entirely content and never considered it are not the same thing, and palace walls, however thick, have always had a way of letting certain whispers out. What happened inside Windsor? Royal sources, and this is where the story takes a turn that will make you pause, have indicated that a conversation took place. Not a formal request, not a letter, not an official petition through palace channels. A conversation. It is believed that at some point in 2025, ahead of a significant state occasion, the question of the lover's knot was raised in Camilla's circle, not necessarily by Camilla herself, and this distinction matters enormously, but by advisors, by those in her orbit who manage her public image and her schedule and her wardrobe selections. The reasoning, reportedly, was this: with Catherine stepping back from public duties during her illness, and with the tiara sitting unworn, there was a window, a practical one. State occasions demand tiaras. The lover's knot is magnificent, and perhaps, after enough time, enough goodwill, enough of Camilla's own work in the public eye, perhaps the association with Diana had softened enough. That conversation, reportedly, reached Princess Anne. Why Princess Anne? Now, you might ask, why would Princess Anne have any say in this? She doesn't control the vault. She doesn't manage the royal wardrobe. She is not in the line of succession in a way that grants her administrative power over the jewelry collection. But Princess Anne's influence inside the royal family operates on a completely different currency. She is the most tireless working royal in the family. She carries out more official engagements per year than almost any other member of the firm. She has no patience for drama, no appetite for politics, and no tolerance for what she considers unnecessary complications. And she has, over decades of royal service, earned a quiet authority that even kings respect. She also loved Diana. This is a detail that the public often forgets or overlooks. The relationship between Anne and Diana was complicated in ways that families always are. There were differences in temperament, in approach, in how each woman understood her role. But Anne was also fiercely protective of Diana in ways that rarely made headlines. She watched what happened to Diana. She watched the marriage, the media, the heartbreak, and finally, the tragedy. And she has never, not once, treated Diana's memory with anything less than the dignity it deserves. When word of that conversation, that advisory whisper about the lover's knot, reached Anne, she did not respond through channels. She did not write a memo. She did not schedule a meeting. She reportedly made her position clear immediately, directly, and without ambiguity. The answer was no. A refusal that echoes through history. Now pause for a second and really consider what this means. Princess Anne does not make public statements about internal palace matters. She does not engage in royal family feuds that end up in the tabloids. She is, famously, the most private public figure in Britain. So when she reportedly takes a stand, when she reportedly says clearly and without equivocation that Diana's tiara should not go to Camilla, that is not a small thing. That is Princess Anne drawing a line in the sand. And in the same motion, sources indicate she made something else known. The lover's knot belongs with Catherine, not because of a formal decree, not because of a written rule, but because of something older and more powerful than any rule, because of what is right, because Catherine is the Princess of Wales, because Catherine is Diana's true successor in that title, that role, and that responsibility, and because Diana's tiara belongs on the head of the woman who is carrying Diana's legacy forward. Can you feel the weight of that? Because if you were Catherine, recovering from cancer, rebuilding your public presence, carrying the grief of a health crisis while continuing to serve your country, and you learned that the woman whose relationship with your late mother-in-law is one of history's most painful love triangles, had been considering wearing Diana's crown, what would you feel? And what would it mean to know that Princess Anne, the Iron Princess, the woman who doesn't do drama, stood in the way and said no? A royal heirloom or a symbol of tension. Princess Charlotte's future tiara is causing quite a stir behind palace doors, and it all leads back to a royal rivalry that refuses to fade. The young princess is set to inherit the iconic Spencer tiara, the same dazzling headpiece her grandmother, Princess Diana, wore on her wedding day. While this should be a touching family tradition, Queen Camilla is reportedly less than thrilled about it. Unlike most royal jewels, the Spencer tiara isn't part of the official crown collection. It belongs to the Spencer family and has been passed down for generations. Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, is keeping the tradition alive by planning to give it to Charlotte when she's older. Considering Charlotte is Diana's only granddaughter, it seems like a fitting choice. But inside the palace, whispers suggest Camilla isn't happy about this decision. Charlotte, just 8 years old, already knows about her grandmother's legacy. She has seen pictures of Diana wearing the stunning tiara and reportedly loves the idea of having something that once belonged to her. Like many young girls, Charlotte enjoys playing dress-up with toy tiaras, but this one is special. It's a connection to the grandmother she never got to meet. While Charlotte's family sees this as a sweet and sentimental gesture, Camilla reportedly has other thoughts. Some insiders claim she believes the tiara should remain within the Spencer family and not be given to Charlotte just yet. Others suspect there's more to the story. Given the complicated history between Diana, Charles, and Camilla, anything linked to Diana remains a sensitive topic. What's raising eyebrows even more is the apparent double standard. Over the years, Camilla has worn several pieces of Diana's old jewelry in public. These appearances have sparked criticism, with many questioning why it's acceptable for Camilla to wear Diana's jewels while Charlotte inheriting her grandmother's tiara causes such an issue. Obviously, the tiara symbolizes more than just a piece of jewelry. It represents a legacy that still holds weight within the royal family. Charlotte may be too young to fully understand the controversy, but as she grows, she'll likely realize the true significance of what she's set to inherit. But the question remains: how will Princess Charlotte handle this legacy, knowing that the past still casts a long shadow over the royal family? Camilla, the jewelry, and the public reaction. Now, let's talk about the thing that genuinely inflamed public opinion. Because what happened in the years following Diana's death, specifically regarding jewelry that the public associated deeply with Diana, became a flashpoint for everything people felt about Camilla Parker Bowles. Let's set the context properly. Camilla Parker Bowles had been a figure of public hatred for years before Diana's death. The affair, which Charles himself admitted to in the infamous 1994 Jonathan Dimbleby documentary, had made Camilla a lightning rod for public fury. When Diana gave that searing Panorama interview in 1995 and spoke about, "There were 3 of us in this marriage," Camilla became, in the public imagination, the destroyer of the fairy tale. Diana's death hardened that feeling. To many people, not just in Britain but worldwide, Camilla was the villain of the story, and that meant that every time Camilla was seen publicly wearing jewelry that even vaguely resembled something Diana had worn, the reaction was visceral. Now, here is where we need to be very careful, because there are 2 completely different things that have been conflated in popular discussion. Thing 1. Camilla wearing crown jewelry, pieces that were never Diana's personal property, that were simply loaned to Diana as Princess of Wales, and that the crown had every legal right to loan to the next senior royal woman. This is uncontroversial legally, even if it was emotionally charged for the public. Thing 2. Camilla wearing pieces that appear in photographs of Diana wearing them, where the chain of custody is not publicly documented. The Cambridge lover's knot tiara is the most discussed example of the first category. Diana wore it repeatedly. After Diana's death, it went back into the Crown collection. Kate Middleton has since worn it dozens of times. Camilla has also worn it on certain occasions. Is that controversial? Emotionally, for many people, yes. Legally, no. It was always Crown property. But then there are the other pieces. In 2005, the year Charles and Camilla finally married, royal watchers with encyclopedic knowledge of Diana's jewelry history began noticing something at official royal engagements. Camilla appeared wearing a pearl and diamond brooch that bore a striking resemblance to a piece Diana had worn in several photographs during the early 1990s. She was photographed with a bracelet that jewelry historians noted was nearly identical in construction and style to a piece from what they believed was Diana's personal collection. And in a photograph from a private royal gathering, later obtained and published by a British royal correspondent, Camilla appeared wearing what at least 3 independent jewelry experts, when shown the image, described as consistent with a piece they had catalogued from Diana's documented personal collection. Now, was it definitively the same piece? This is where the story gets genuinely complicated, because without access to the actual items for physical examination, without official inventory records being made public, the most any expert can say is, it looks like it could be the same piece. The design matches, the construction is consistent, the timeline fits. That's not proof, but it's not nothing either. Royal jeweler and historian Leslie Field, who literally wrote the definitive book on the crown jewels and royal jewelry collections, noted in interviews before her death that there were significant gaps in the public record regarding Diana's personal jewelry and its fate after 1997. She was careful not to make accusations, but she was emphatic that the public record was incomplete. And when the public record is incomplete regarding something this visible, this emotionally charged, this central to the legacy of one of the most beloved public figures of the 20th century, people are going to ask questions. They should ask questions. Here's one for you. If you were a member of Diana's family, if you were Prince William or Prince Harry, would you want to know exactly where every piece of your mother's personal jewelry ended up? And do you think they actually do know? Because based on everything that has emerged publicly over the past decade, including Harry's own memoir, the answer appears to be not entirely. Your thoughts matter. Now I want to hear from you, because this story raises questions that don't have easy answers. Do you think Princess Anne was right to intervene? Was this an act of protection or an overreach? Is it fair that Camilla is effectively permanently excluded from wearing a piece that technically her husband controls? And what about Catherine? She has worn the lover's knot with extraordinary grace, but does wearing it honor Diana, or does it risk overshadowing her? And here's the biggest question of all. When Catherine eventually becomes queen consort and steps back from the lover's knot, when it passes to the next generation, will Diana's connection to it survive? Or will time finally do what time always does and make it simply a beautiful tiara again? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is exactly the kind of conversation that matters, and I read every single one. The living symbol. Royal heirlooms are not museum pieces. They are not frozen in time, locked in glass cases, belonging to the past. They breathe. They move through generations. They accumulate meaning with every occasion, every wearer, every headline. The Cambridge lover's knot tiara was commissioned in 1913. It has outlived every single person who has ever worn it, every government that stood when it was made, every political crisis and social revolution and technological transformation that has reshaped the world around it. And it is still going. It will be at the next state banquet. It will be on Catherine's head, catching the light, drawing every eye in the room. It will be photographed and analyzed and compared and celebrated and written about. And somewhere in all of that, in all the noise and glamour and commentary, there will be a quiet, persistent presence. Diana, not as a ghost, not as a tragedy, as a legacy, as a woman who wore this tiara and made it hers and left a mark on the world so deep that even now in 2026, her choices shape the choices of queens. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, everything. If this story moved you, if you felt the weight of what Princess Anne reportedly did, and what it means for Catherine and for Diana's memory, then please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. And share this video, because this is exactly the kind of royal story that deserves to be seen. Not for the drama, but for what it reveals about legacy, loyalty, and the extraordinary, complicated, beautiful burden of carrying history forward. I'll see you in the next one.